Hi, Team Gerwell. Welcome to Flippin' in Fifth with me, Mrs. G. Today we're going to be looking at Topic 2, Lesson 3. By now you already know that before you even start the video, you should have copied your notes page on your next open page in your notebook. Today's learning target is, I will be able to use rounding and compatible numbers to estimate the sum or difference. Today's vocabulary. Number 1, addend. An addend is a number that is added to another number. For example, 237 plus 305. 237 would be the addend because it's being added to 305. Number 2, our next vocabulary word is sum. That is the answer to an addition problem. And number 3, estimate. Using rounding or compatible numbers to find an answer that is close, but not the exact answer. So for a leadership service project, Team Gerwell collected food for a local animal shelter. I know, cuteness overload. So if you round each number in the table to get to the nearest 100, what numbers do you get? Rounding. I feel like we just talked about this. We did. Remember the rounding poem? Read it with me. Find your place, look next door, 5 or greater, add 1 more. All digits in front stay the same, all digits behind, zeros your name. I want you to stop and review this over and over and over until you remember it by heart. Now, if you round each number in the table to the nearest 100, what numbers do you get? Well, according to our rounding program, if we were to do week 1, we would find your place. We know in this case, we're estimating to the or rounding to the nearest 100, so the 1 is in the hundreds place. I like to underline it just to remind me. Our next sentence in the rounding poem says, look next door. So we would be looking at the 7. Our next line in the rounding poem tells us what to do next. 5 or greater, add 1 more. Is 7 greater than 5? It is, so we need to add 1 more onto the 1. So that 1 will change to 2, and all digits behind zeros your name. So 172 rounded to the nearest 100 is 200. Why don't you go ahead and look at the rest of these numbers and see if you can make your own estimates to the nearest 100. Stop the video, and when you're done, you can come back and play it again. Here come the estimates in 3, 2, 1. Did you get them correct? I sure hope so. If you used the rounding poem, my guess is you probably did. So now we're going to estimate the sum of the cans collected in weeks 3 and weeks 4. Remember, when we're reading a table, we're going to go down and look for week 3, and we know that they collected 237 cans, or our estimate of 200. And then 4 would be 345 cans, or our estimate was 300. One of the ways that we can estimate the sum of something is to use the numbers we rounded and just add them. So we know that 200 plus 300 equals 500. So 500 is a good estimate of the cans collected in weeks 3 and 4. Now let's look at another way we can estimate sums using compatible numbers. Remember, we talked about those yesterday too. Compatible numbers are numbers that are easy to add, but they're close to the exact number. So for week 3, we would change 237 to 250. 250 is a compatible number because it ends in a 5 or a 10, because you know how easy it is to add things that are in 10s or 5s. And 250 is close to 237. And then week 4, we would change that to 350 because it's very close to 345. So it's a compatible number, but it's much easier to add 250 plus 350 than it is to add 237 plus 345 in our heads. So when we add 250 to 350, we get 600 as our estimate, this time when we use compatible numbers. Remember, anytime we're answering something that asks us to estimate, you always need to use the word about 600. So how do the estimates change if you use compatible numbers? Well, remember when we did our estimate using rounding, we got 500. This time when we estimate using compatible numbers, we got about 600. That's almost 100 difference, 100 cans difference. Remember, the first one using rounding gave us a smaller number, but when we use compatible numbers, it was a larger number, but it was closer to the exact answer. These are two different ways that you can estimate, and as long as the directions don't tell you exactly how they want you to estimate, you can do it either way that works best for you. So are both answers correct? Yes, they are. As long as you're using rounding or compatible numbers, your estimates are correct. They may be different from a teammate's answers, but remember, only exact answers are the same. Estimates are not exact. Now you try. Go ahead and pause the video and write down problems 1 through 4 in your math notebook. I want to see the process you go through when you estimate according to what it says. Remember, anytime we see an addition or subtraction or multiplication or division number and we see it horizontally, I want you to write it the correct way, which would be vertically, and make sure that all of your digits are all lined up before you do it. And then change whether you're rounding or you're using compatible numbers. Remember, exact numbers are not an estimate. This needs to be an estimate, so all of your answers should include the word about. Go ahead and pause the video and come back when you're done to check your answers. Here come the answers in 3, 2, 1. So the estimate for number 1, we needed to use rounding to the nearest 100. So following the rounding poem and what I've learned from that, I know to underline the digit in the hundreds place, look next door. If it's 5 or more, we're going to add one more. So 3,789 will be rounded to 3,800. 2,345 would be rounded to 2,300. So when we add our rounded numbers together, 6,100 is the estimate. Number 2, this time we're being asked to estimate using compatible numbers. So I'm going to change 29 to 30 because it's the closest number that is a 5 or a 10 and it's easy to add. And 35 I'm going to keep the same because it's easy for me to add by 5s. So 30 plus 35 equals 60. That is the estimate using compatible numbers. This time we needed to estimate by rounding to the nearest 1,000. So 12,876 will change to 13,000 by rounding. Then 13,478 when we're rounding is also 13,000. 13,000 plus 13,000 is 26,000. That is a good estimate. And problem number 4. Look at that. Lots of digits involved in this one, right? Well, it's asking to change 1,999,000 all the way down by using compatible numbers. Well, actually, the closest compatible number is just by adding 1 to each. So we're going to change that to 2 billion plus 2 billion equals 4 billion. That is a good estimate. Promise, that's the hardest problem you're going to have to do. Before you go, make sure you've checked your work and you write how many you got correct. Remember, be honest, this isn't for a grade. Then I want you to honestly fill out your self-reflection. Could you teach a friend, or are you still a bit confused? This is on both ways to estimate, using rounding and using compatible numbers. Do you still have questions about maybe just using compatible numbers or maybe rounding? Write them under questions I still have so we could go over those in class tomorrow. You did a great job tonight. Thank you so much for listening, paying such good attention, and trying so incredibly hard. I'll see you in class tomorrow. Bye-bye.